up, guys? This is Tamer from F the Track, back for another vlog. Today, the vlog I wanted to shoot for you guys today was basically what makes the ISF so special as a vehicle, what makes it more unique as a vehicle. All right. So what I wanted to start basically with is initially the development history. That's basically where I think that's the biggest point that makes it kind of unique, basically here. Now, what makes the ISF so special in terms of its development, you guys, we'd have to start with one man, and his name is Yukihiko Yaguchi. He's an engineer who works for Lexus and Toyota, and he's been an engineer for Lexus and Toyota for probably 3 decades now. So he's got a lot of experience. In fact, he's had his own hand in the first 2-generation Lexus LS sedans, which was obviously very, very big vehicles for Lexus, kind of like the opener for Lexus. He also was involved in the Toyota Supra. So he's done he's had his hands on some pretty big projects for Lexus and Toyota, performance-wise in terms of the Supra, as well as even the GS, I believe it's the 430, or the first generation, I want to say the first generation GS sedan. But anyways, he had his hands on a bunch of very high-end projects for Lexus. Now, over the years, and the guy's a motorsports fan himself, basically, and over the years, obviously, you always dream of kind of developing something a little bit more unique, a little bit more powerful, a little bit more distinctive, that kind of a thing, basically. But for the most part, again, it's when you get into these corporate situations, basically, you're not making decisions on your own. There's product planning developments, there's engineering, there's a lot of other stuff that goes into producing these cars. So it's not something as basic as, hey man, I want to make this car. So whereas most vehicles are developed that are produced basically by manufacturers, they're produced with the help of the product planning development departments, basically. So they're basically going to say we want to develop X, Y, and Z kind of a vehicle for the market to kind of fit this niche or this kind of group of people. So we need you to produce something, basically, and the engineers go out and they're going to do their homework and come back and present and that kind of a thing. Now with the Lexus ISF, what makes it different, you guys, is it wasn't done that way. Everything was done kind of in reverse, which kind of made it a little bit more special. It was kind of we'll call it a passion project. What Yukihiko Yaguchi did basically was end up kind of developing kind of the car on his own, basically, or secondarily, without any extra help, basically. So what he did initially was went to product planning and said, hey, you guys, I've got this concept for this kind of super sedan, something to go against the big cars from Europe, something that's going to set us, kind of push us up in the rung here on the ladder, and something that's distinctive and that kind of a thing, and powerful, and again, something that we haven't done before, kind of like a new chapter for Lexus. They were into it, they kind of liked it, but because it was something that was presented, basically, and it wasn't anything that product planning was backing for initially. He had an okay, basically, but not as much backing as a standard kind of vehicle in terms of development. So what he did was, and this kind of makes the car unique, basically, you guys, was the development of the ISF had to become kind of more of a skunks works project. It was something that was done on the side because it didn't have full backing. Most cars that are developed, usually, especially with a company as big as Toyota or Lexus, basically, when they develop these cars literally with thousands of engineers. I mean, you could run anywhere from 1,000 to 2,000, even more engineers working on a vehicle, basically, and that's how many minds come together, basically, to produce a car. In this situation, he had to work with a lot less because he had no budget. He did have some pull. He could pull some strings, that kind of a thing, basically, but he didn't have this massive budget, so it became a skunks works project, meaning the engineers worked on the car kind of between their projects, after hours, the weekends, that kind of thing. And Yukihiko Yaguchi selected basically the top engineers, the best of the best of the best, basically, to get on board to produce the ISF. So they worked on it. They developed it basically on the best racetracks around the world, including the Nürburgring, I believe Estoril, Fuji, of course, which is where most of the development of the car was done. So the car was definitely developed and race bred, basically. The engineering team put together a great car. Went back to product development, basically showed them again what they'd done. They were still behind them. They still didn't have as much backing, but still they were behind them. So Yukihiko Yaguchi had the 5-liter from the LS 600, And what he did was basically they took it to Yamaha, and he had Yamaha work a little magic basically on the engine to help develop and kind of push it up to a higher level. So that was a big portion of that too. The secondary portion of that too, you guys, was the Toyota Technocraft, which Yukihiko Yaguchi did also get, or I should say Yaguchi-san did get involved basically with the development. Now Toyota Technocraft at the time was kind of like the side company, did work with Toyota. They usually made, I believe, like they would help in development of like police cars and stuff like that if Toyota needs stuff like that. Also aero parts for some of the Toyota vehicles. So it wasn't necessarily the thing, but he used them also to help with the development of the Lexus ISF. So again, in terms of passion, you guys, again, it was built as a Skunksworks project. It was also something that he did because he really wanted to do it. It was passion. It was done on the side, and he pulled as many strings as he could to get the car developed and developed in the right way. So the right people had their hands on the car basically, and again the Lexus ISF was developed, and it was, again, it's also the first F car. So again, it's not just the standard kind of car that any performance company would make, and they're like, hey, this is just the next one. No, the Lexus ISF represents basically the we'll call it kind of the F Spark. It's kind of the initial F car. This is the very first car that Lexus kind of developed to kind of present the whole F brand to the whole world, and also to show to show the whole world that Lexus is serious about performance. They were done making kind of the soft, well-made, very luxurious, very reliable luxury sedans. They wanted to step into into that higher end performance market, and not just kind of the badging and hey, the upgraded brakes and that kind of thing. No, a real car, a real performance car, something that performance guys can stand behind, can drive, can track, and daily drive like I do even my own basically here. So again, it is historically, I think it's a special car, and even if nobody recognizes that now, I think it will be in the future. Lexus, when they get in the game, you guys, they don't get in the game to kind of get in line basically. When Lexus gets in the game, they get in the game to win. All right, they are aggressive. I mean, look what they did basically from 1989 to today in terms of the luxury car market. They kind of turned it on its head, and now they, if not they dominate, they're easily in the top 3. If not, sometimes they're number 1 in sales. They vary basically, but again, look what they did in terms of their luxury. Now, I feel like for the first time, Lexus really, with the F brand, they stepped in and said, hey, no, we're stepping into the ring with a real contender basically, which was again the ISF. And because, like I mentioned even previously, because the Lexus hadn't produced anything like that before, they had to kind of make sure they got it right. So when they did, believe me, you guys, they had to do their homework on this car to make sure they get it right, make sure that it was a real performer. So again, historically, it is the first F car. Now, what I'd like to kind of let's say liken it to, or kind of compare it to, you guys, would be, let's say like the first M car. Let's say I think it was like the mid 80s, like 84, 86. One of the first M cars. Now, back then it was this performance car from BMW, blah blah blah. People, hey, they like the way they drive, and it's well made. But hey, whatever. It's a motorsports car, whatever. Now look at those cars now. What people would look at them now, look at them like now. I mean, historically. I'm sure they're valued. The value is pretty high. People do collect them. I'm sure, that kind of a thing. So even though, like I said, Lexus, the Lexus ISF right now is especially in the used market, is your average $30,000 car, and it's a great car basically to buy. I still think historically people will look back on it basically like some of the first M cars. It's a historically significant car for Lexus. And again, look what Lexus has done with their luxury marks. Imagine what they're going to do with their performance. I mean, now we have the ISF, we have the LFA, we have the RCF, we have the GSF. Rumors are basically that the LCF is being produced, and I think it is being produced, you guys. And they're only, I think they're trying to throw the wet blanket on it basically, just so it's more of a surprise when it does finally get released. But trust me, it's coming. And I wouldn't be surprised later if they developed an LSF. A very high performance, larger sedan, basically like some of the AMG cars are getting done. Now, also too, what also makes the ISF a special car, you guys, it was the first 8-speed car. So again, Lexus, they did their homework. They did their development work on the car. It wasn't just let's throw a big motor in a car and send it out, basically. I think also what makes the ISF a very special car, you guys, it's a Japanese hot rod. It literally follows the American hot rod formula, which I think is kind of cool. You've got the smallest chassis you can get from the manufacturer, which is the second generation IS. And then you literally you shoehorn the biggest freaking motor that you can get into the car and just drop it into the motor, drop it into the smallest body that you've got, and boom, you've got a hot rod. So again, it is kind of a Japanese hot rod. It is a sedan, but it's still, I would consider it basically a hot rod. Now, also in terms of the power plant, again, it's 2017. You guys are, at least from the videos being shot, it's 2017. Today's modern engines, everything's forced induction, you guys, mainly turbo, okay? So the ISF is still, I still think it's still got that special kind of, I don't want to say the older school formula, but yeah, it is kind of basically just that huge, normally aspirated, great sounding, large V8 basically. It's powered by a great car. It's got that good great motor, but it's got that great linear power. Thing pulls amazingly well, especially above 4,000 basically. I think, again, great power plant. I think later on, even though people do, I think, appreciate the efficiency of the turbos, as well as kind of that nice torque. You put that pedal down, once that thing spools up, I mean, that thing will put you in your seat, basically. But again, you've got that slight delay. It doesn't sound as good. The power delivery is a little bit different. It's not as linear, basically. Now, also to you guys, the ISF, in terms of the performance cars out there, especially if you're going to buy a used one, I mean, they're reliable. I mean, that's something you have to stand up and say. That's something that is special, basically, in this realm. I mean, in this realm, let's look at the competition, you guys. And again, I'm not here to bash. I'm just being straight up. I mean, you can look at this stuff objectively. The ISF, in terms of the performance sedans in its generation, is going to be, period, the most reliable. Go ahead and look. Anybody want to comment, feel free to comment. So let's say any of the, let's say the smaller, the first gen CTS-V, the small one, okay? This is definitely a more reliable car. You've got the Audis. I'll put money on it. This is more reliable. The BMW M3, great freaking car. Okay, nobody's going to say anything bad about it in terms of its performance, but give me a break, you guys. It's not going to hold up like this thing. This car has now done 20 track days, and the only thing I've ever had to do to it was to tighten the driver's seat because it was squeaking. Okay, I don't think that you're going to track a BMW 20 times in 3 years, or an Audi 20 times in 3 years, or a Mercedes. I've never even seen a Benz C63 AMG on the track before. Basically, not to say that they don't do them. Nobody's tracking them, basically, guys. But I've never seen them ever out there. It just doesn't seem like that kind of car. But again, I personally just don't believe, especially when I'm spending my own money, I don't believe that any of those cars are trackable the way I've tracked this car, and that you're not going to have a single issue with the car. Knock on wood, basically. I haven't had any issues. Literally, the only problem I've ever had after tracking the shit out of this car was a squeaky driver's seat. I got home and I was sitting there going around a corner, and you're just kind of like, what the hell's that noise? And then you look on the forums, everybody's like, oh, it's just the bolts on the driver's seat. So it took me about 10 minutes. Pop up the little plastic shields and just tighten it up, basically, and you're done. That's it. It eats brakes, it eats tires. That's it. It's a very, very reliable car. Very, very reliable car. Sound. Now, also, yeah, it leads me to my next point here too. Basically, when I get back to the forced induction and that kind of stuff, you guys, well, the modern engines, we're losing sound. So the ISF, like most enthusiasts are going to do, you put an exhaust on your car, it's just going to sound. It's going to sound better. It's just going to sound better. Normally, aspirated V8 will always sound better than any turbo, V6 basically, or 4-cylinder will. It's just the bottom line. So it does give the car a bit more character. Definitely when I roll up, to a car show or something like that, you rev your car up, or even on track when you're on grid, everybody's kind of messing around and revving up on everybody else too. You rev it up, people notice. It's a great sounding car. It makes it more fun to drive, especially if you can find yourself a tunnel or bridge or something like that. It makes it a lot more fun. Now, again, you guys, so I have gotten into the historical significance of the car. The V8 had the Japanese hot rod, basically, which I think is really special. This is also, to you guys, I mean, it's kind of the revival of Lexus, Toyota, especially Toyota, just generally as a brand. This was the first car, again, to kind of call that first spark, that heartbeat, as that brand was laying there on the table dead, in terms of performance, it was literally that first heartbeat, the first spark, to bring that performance breath of air basically back to Lexus and Toyota, and I definitely think it did. And again, I still think when it first came out, people didn't really know what to think. They're like, what the fuck's up with this car? You know, haha, these guys they must be joking. You know, the Lexus did well initially, you know, but not that well. It was still basically third place out of the 3, or maybe out of the 4, right above the Audi, basically. In terms of performance, when it was released, and I think mainly that had to do with the fact that it didn't have a limited slip. You guys, it just didn't feel, it didn't come out of the corners and pull it basically as well as it did. So when you compare track times, it's not going to do as well. Also, in terms of ride, you know, it's a little bit choppier basically. But again, I still think basically it's a very well-rounded, well-developed car, you guys. It's filled with passion. It's reliable. It's powerful. It's a very, very good car, basically, you guys. I'm very, very happy that I own one, and I do feel that it is very special. And like I said, whether we, you know, most people, or even the market, recognizes it now, or they will later. Like I said, this car will be significant historically, I believe. Again, it is the first Lexus F car, the first performance car, the Spark from the Toyota brand, the first, I don't know, I mean, honestly, this is the first fun Lexus ever, and the first fun Toyota shit since what, when was the last Supra? God, I mean, it'd have to be at least 15 years ago, basically, the very, very last Supra, and even then, that was what, 300 horsepower stock? I think you can't make more power with the thing, obviously with that 2JZ GTE motor, it's insane. And it's to call it tunable is an understatement. But I mean, right out of the box, it's a turbo 300 horsepower car. Excuse me, guys, if my numbers are off. Maybe it was 280, it was 300, 320. Excuse me, but somewhere in that neighborhood, basically. But again, it wasn't a huge, normally aspirated. You know, the American formula, the hot rod, the small chassis with the big V8, the great sound. So again, this was something very unique for Japan. You know, definitely very unique. I mean, Nissan's never produced anything like this before, especially not for the American market. Definitely not. They did have that M56 thing, you know, the Japanese hot rod back in the day, but my ass, nobody's tracking that thing. That's not a trackable car. It's not a real performance car. This is a very unique car, you guys, for Japan, definitely for Lexus and for Toyota as a whole. So I feel like historically people will look back at this again, not just the first F car, but the first fun Lexus, the first performance Lexus, and then again the first the kind of the spark for performance cars back at Toyota, which I think people again will look back at them later and recognize how special they are. The last thing I'm going to mention, you guys, too, and I haven't mentioned this in some of the previous videos too, it's just rarity. There's only 5,118 Lexus ISFs sold in the United States, basically, and I think for the global market, we're looking at around 11,000. So it's a rare car. So what I kind of dig about the car, basically, you're not going to show up to a track day, most likely, unless you show up with one, which is usually happen. That's usually what happens if I do meet another ISF on the track. We know each other. But your bottom line is you're not going to meet another ISF or run into another ISF at the track. You're most likely not going to pull up to a stoplight next to another ISF. That's not going to happen. And most likely you're not going to show up to a large car show and just, hey, look, there's another ISF here. So it does make it kind of unique. It's special. And the rarity, again, it makes it kind of special. And I find that, let's say, imagine if I take my car to a track day, you know, I'm lined up on, just in the paddock area, basically, I'm just chilling out doing my thing. I have, you know, people, and I'm not just tooting my own horn, I mean, definitely you get a few people, a handful full of people, at least every single track day, come up and go, you know, hey, is this an ISF? I've never seen one of these, you know, how is it to drive? You know, blah, 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 basically ask questions about the car. I don't think most people are going to walk up and say, hey, I've never seen this BMW, you know, M3 before, this Audi RS car, or, you know, or whatever, and say, hey, this is pretty cool, what is it like to own, or, you know, I've never seen one of these before. I just think the rarity makes it just extra special. And then, like I said, too, ownership experience, you guys, is going to be extra special too. That's what makes it special. You can drive the car, daily drive the car, and I mean literally, your commute. You can put fucking 25,000 miles a year on this car, and then track the hell out of it, basically. And it doesn't hiccup. It doesn't make a noise. It doesn't complain. It doesn't send you to the dealer, you know, with issues. You know, and I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm just more OCD than everybody else, you guys, but, you know, as an enthusiast when I have a problem with my car, it fucks with me a little bit. It bothers me. It stresses me out. I don't like it when my car is not running really, really well. Okay, I don't like issues with the car, and that's why me as an enthusiast, I tend to stick with Lexus as a brand. And I know a lot of my friends and even some of my family don't understand that basically, but that's why I do it. It's the ownership experience. It's not just, you know, hey, you guys, I'm driving this fast car. We could all take our 40 grand or whatever the hell and go out and buy used, you know, whatever Corvette or an older used Corvette or something like that. I'm not saying they're not, you know, great cars, but they're probably not going to be as reliable as this thing. I feel like some of the GM stuff it's more designed kind of to last a certain amount of time, and then it just gives. Whereas Toyota and Lexus, they just tend to build their cars or their parts. Literally, they're designed to go as long as humanly possible, literally, and then they break. So again, I like the fact that the car gives me that flexibility, you guys. I can daily drive the thing. I can drive the car to LA, visit parents and family. I can drive the car to Nevada for a track day. I can do a 350-mile round trip to California for a track day. Same thing. And then I go to work. Again, it's quiet. It doesn't hiccup. It doesn't make noises. It doesn't, you know, especially even as the track days go on, you're kind of listening. There's no squeaky noises. There's nothing other than the chair, like I mentioned, you guys. So again, it does allow you to kind of, it gives you that great ownership experience, which I think some of the performance cars out there just aren't. They're great cars, you know, but after a while they kind of burn the owners out and just on to the next one, basically. So I feel like this is one of those cars that you can make kind of a family member, you know. And I plan to kind of, honestly, even though I've said this in the past about my other cars, I really do want to keep this car for the rest of my life. I'd keep this car and maybe buy another LS or something like that. I love that car too. That was a great fucking car. But something super luxurious, and then I can keep this thing for the weekends, track days, fun stuff basically. And then something I can have later to show the kids, because you know there's not going to be any V8s later. Basically, it's a dying breed. Anyways, you guys, I hope you guys enjoyed the vlog. You know, what's so special about the Lexus ISF? I hope you guys are also enjoying the content on F the Track. Obviously, we're now on Instagram, we're on YouTube, obviously, and we're also on Facebook. So again, thank you very much for following the pages, you guys, and I hope you guys enjoy the video, and I hope you guys catch the next one. We'll catch you guys next time. F the Track.